The Galactic Council's war room buzzed with tension as representatives from 12 species debated humanity's proposed membership. Admiral Kethvar of the Zenthari Empire slammed his four-armed frame against the crystalline table, his mandibles clicking with disgust. "Humans are nothing but primitive warmongers," he hissed, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays showing Earth's military history. "They have been fighting each other for millennia. What could they possibly offer our peaceful alliance?" Ambassador Yilnara from the Velkin Confederation nodded her elongated blue head in agreement. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their fastest ships barely reach light speed. They use crude chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons. Why should we consider such a backward species?" The debate had raged for hours. Species after species voiced their concerns about humanity's violent nature, their technological limitations, their short lifespans, and their apparent inability to achieve lasting peace even among themselves. The holographic evidence was damning: wars, conflicts, destruction spanning thousands of years of recorded history. Commander Sarah Chen sat quietly in the observers section, her weathered face betraying no emotion as alien after alien dismissed her species as unworthy. She had been sent as Earth's military liaison, tasked with presenting humanity's case for admission to the Galactic Council. Her uniform was simple compared to the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by the other species' representatives, and she seemed almost insignificant among the towering alien forms surrounding her. Fleet Admiral Zorthak of the Krillian Dominion, a massive reptilian being whose species was known for their tactical brilliance, leaned forward on his scaled haunches. "The humans have indeed shown remarkable persistence in their conflicts, but persistence in warfare is not what we seek in the Council. We need beings capable of wisdom, of choosing diplomacy over violence." "Have you reviewed their recent peacekeeping efforts?" Sarah finally spoke, her voice cutting through the chamber with quiet authority. "The humans have maintained relative peace on their world for the past century. They've established global cooperation initiatives, shared resources across former enemy lines, and developed technologies for healing rather than harming." General Vexter from the Horthak Republic, a species known for their military prowess, scoffed. "Peace born from exhaustion is not true peace. When resources become scarce again, when populations grow restless, they will return to their primitive ways. It is in their nature." Sarah stood slowly, her movements precise and controlled. "With respect, General, you speak of human nature without understanding what drives us. Yes, we have fought wars. Yes, we have made mistakes. But we have also shown the capacity to learn, to grow, to sacrifice everything for those we protect." "Empty words," Admiral Kethvar spat. "Where is your evidence? Show us proof that humanity possesses the qualities necessary for Council membership. Show us that your species can contribute something meaningful to our alliance." The chamber fell silent. 12 pairs of alien eyes, in all their various forms, focused on the lone human woman standing before them. Sarah's hand moved slowly to her collar, her fingers working at the fasteners of her uniform jacket. "You want evidence?" she asked quietly, her voice carrying a weight that seemed to fill the vast chamber. "You want to know what humans are truly capable of?" She began to turn, rotating slowly so that her back faced the assembled representatives. With deliberate movements, she lifted her uniform jacket and the shirt beneath, exposing her bare shoulder and upper back to the chamber. The silence deepened as alien eyes focused on her exposed skin. There, etched into her flesh in precise, dark lines, was a tattoo unlike anything the alien representatives had ever seen. It was not decorative art or cultural marking. It was a symbol of service, of brotherhood, of sacrifice that transcended individual species or planets. The mark was simple yet profound, a trident piercing through an eagle, surrounded by the words, "The only easy day was yesterday," in Earth's ancient English script. Below it, in smaller text, were coordinates and a date. But it was not just the image that commanded attention, it was what the image represented and how it had been applied. Ambassador Yilnara leaned forward, her enhanced vision analyzing the marking. "This is not ink," she whispered. "These lines, they are scars, precise scars, deliberately created." Sarah slowly lowered her shirt and turned back to face the assembly, her expression unchanged. "This mark represents service in Earth's most elite military unit. It cannot be bought, inherited, or awarded through politics. It can only be earned through actions that most beings would consider impossible." Fleet Admiral Zorthak's reptilian features showed the first signs of interest. What actions? Sarah met his gaze steadily. The coordinates on my back mark the location of Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. The date commemorates Operation Neptune Spear. I was part of the team that eliminated the terrorist leader Osama bin Laden. The chamber erupted in murmurs as universal translators worked to convey the significance of names and places that were legend even among the galactic intelligence networks. But that is not why this mark matters to you, Sarah continued, her voice cutting through the noise. This mark was not given to me by my own people. It was earned through an action that impressed a group known for being impossible to impress. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the chamber. 7 years after that operation, I was serving as a military advisor in a joint peacekeeping mission on the Gliza colony. Pirates had taken hostages in a mining facility, 143 civilians from 12 different species, including children. The facility was rigged with explosives. 3 rescue attempts by Council forces had failed. General Vexter's warrior instincts were clearly engaged. What did you do? Sarah's expression remained calm, professional. I went in alone. The mining facility on Gliza 442C had been designed to extract rare crystals from deep within the planet's crust. Its tunnels stretched for kilometers underground, creating a maze of corridors, ventilation shafts, and processing chambers. When the Korath pirates seized it, they had chosen their target well. The facility's complexity made any rescue attempt a nightmare of variables and potential casualties. Sarah had arrived with the Council peacekeeping force as an observer, part of humanity's ongoing efforts to prove their worth to the galactic community. She watched from the command post as 3 separate rescue operations failed spectacularly. The Zenthari had tried a frontal assault, losing 6 soldiers to improvised explosive devices before retreating. The Velkin had attempted to use their advanced sensors to map the facility and locate hostages, only to discover the pirates had electromagnetic scramblers that rendered their technology useless. The Krillian forces had tried a siege approach, cutting off supplies and communications, but the pirates had simply threatened to execute hostages every hour until their demands were met. The situation is untenable, declared Commander Thisek, the Zenthari officer leading the joint operation. His mandibles clicked with frustration as he studied the holographic layout of the facility. These pirates know we cannot risk the lives of the hostages. They have positioned themselves perfectly to resist any conventional rescue attempt. Perhaps we should consider their demands, suggested Lieutenant Yildara from the Velkin contingent. The pirates want safe passage and a ship. If we provide these things, the hostages will be released. Commander Thisek's 4 arms gestured dismissively. And reward their terrorism, set a precedent that taking Council citizens hostage is profitable, unacceptable. Sarah studied the facility schematics on her portable display, her mind processing the layout with the tactical training that had been drilled into her over decades of military service. She saw possibilities that the alien forces had overlooked, not because they lacked intelligence or courage, but because their approaches to warfare were fundamentally different from human methodology. The ventilation system, she said quietly, pointing to a series of narrow shafts that ran throughout the complex. These ducts are too small for most species to navigate, but a human could fit. General Morthak from the Horthak Republic looked at her with something approaching amusement. Even if you could crawl through those passages, you would be detected by motion sensors. The pirates have secured all entry points. Not all of them. Sarah traced a path on the display with her finger. There's an auxiliary intake vent here, on the surface about 2 kilometers from the main facility. It connects to the primary air circulation system through a series of natural cave networks. The pirates couldn't have rigged every meter of that system with sensors. Commander Thisek examined the route she indicated. That passage leads directly through the planet's unstable rock formations. One wrong move could cause a cave-in that would seal you inside permanently. Even if you survived the journey, you would emerge alone in a facility filled with armed hostiles holding innocent lives as shields. Sarah nodded calmly. That's correct. It would be suicide, Lieutenant Yildara protested. One individual against an unknown number of enemies in their chosen stronghold. No backup, no support, no escape route. It cannot be done. Sarah was already checking her equipment and preparing for the mission. With respect, Lieutenant, You're thinking like someone who fights wars to minimize casualties and maximize tactical advantage. Sometimes the situation calls for a different approach. She stripped down to basic gear, a simple tactical vest, her sidearm, minimal equipment. The alien representatives watched with something between horror and fascination as she prepared to enter what they all recognized as a death trap. "This is madness," General Morthak declared. "Your death will accomplish nothing except to give the pirates another body to use in their negotiations." Sarah secured her communications device and checked her weapon one final time. "General, I need you to understand something about humans. We don't just fight when we have advantage. We fight when fighting needs to be done. And sometimes we fight because someone needs to." The journey through the ventilation system took her 4 hours. She crawled through passages barely wide enough for her shoulders, navigated around machinery that generated enough heat to cook an unprotected person, and squeezed through cave formations that scraped skin from her arms and back. Twice she had to backtrack when passages proved too narrow or unstable. The communication system could only penetrate so far underground, leaving her completely cut off from any support. When she finally reached the main facility, she emerged from a ceiling vent into a storage chamber filled with mining equipment. Through the walls, she could hear voices, the harsh clicking language of the Korath pirates and the frightened sounds of hostages in distress. She spent 20 minutes moving through the facility's service areas, avoiding the main corridors while gathering intelligence on the pirates' positions. There were 12 of them, armed with military-grade weapons and equipped with personal shields that could deflect most Council weaponry. They had positioned hostages throughout the facility as human shields, making any direct assault impossible. Sarah's approach was different. She didn't plan to fight them directly. The facility's power grid was controlled from a central station in the main processing chamber. Sarah reached it by crawling through maintenance tunnels, emerging behind a bank of control panels, while the pirates remained focused on monitoring the main entrances. She began systematically sabotaging critical systems, not enough to cause immediate failure, but enough to create cascading problems that would require the pirates' attention. She disabled backup power to 3 sections, created pressure imbalances in the air circulation system, and triggered false alarms in areas where no hostages were being held. The pirates responded exactly as she had hoped. They split up to investigate the problems, sending teams to secure critical areas while leaving smaller groups to guard the hostages. This gave Sarah the opportunities she needed. She moved through the facility like a ghost, using the chaos she had created to mask her presence. One by one, she eliminated the scattered pirates, not through direct confrontation, but through tactics they never saw coming. A pirate investigating a power failure found himself trapped in a sealed chamber when Sarah activated an emergency lockdown protocol. Another fell through a maintenance hatch that Sarah had rigged to give way under weight. A third simply disappeared when Sarah used the facility's ore processing equipment in ways the designers never intended. The rescue took 6 hours from start to finish. When the facility's main doors opened and hostages began emerging, the Council forces waiting outside found Sarah walking calmly among them, covered in dust and minor injuries, but moving with the same steady professionalism she had shown before entering. "Status report," Commander Thisek demanded as she approached the command post. "All hostages safe," Sarah reported simply. 12 pirates neutralized, facility secured." The alien commanders stared at her in stunned silence. What they had deemed impossible, she had accomplished alone. The aftermath of the Gliza facility rescue created ripples that reached far beyond the immediate crisis. Word spread quickly through Council military networks about the human who had accomplished what 3 separate alien forces could not. But it was not just the success that captured attention, it was the method. Sarah spent 3 days in the medical bay recovering from her injuries. The facility's ventilation system had left her with dozens of cuts and abrasions. Her hands were raw from crawling through metal passages, and she had suffered minor burns from the facility's heat exchangers. But she had refused treatment until every hostage had been examined and cleared for release. "Your healing rate is remarkable," observed Dr. Kethara, a Velkin medic whose 4 arms moved with practiced efficiency as she treated Sarah's wounds. "Most species would require weeks of recovery from these injuries." Sarah sat patiently as the alien physician worked. "Humans are good at healing. We've had a lot of practice." During her recovery, something unexpected began happening. Individual members of the Council peacekeeping force started visiting her in the medical bay. Not officially. These were personal visits, warriors from different species coming to speak with her privately. The first was Sergeant Thekmer from the Zenthari assault team that had failed in their initial rescue attempt. He stood at the foot of her medical bed, his compound eyes studying her with what humans might have recognized as curiosity mixed with respect. "I have fought in 43 campaigns," he said in his clicking language, which the universal translator converted to clear speech. "I have seen courage in many forms, but I do not understand what drove you to enter that facility alone." Sarah considered the question carefully. The hostages needed someone to help them. I was someone who could help. But the probability of failure was overwhelming. The risk to your own life was extreme. By any logical analysis, the attempt should not have been made. Sarah's response was simple. "Sergeant, when was the last time logic saved someone who was afraid?" Thekmer was quiet for a long moment. "You speak of duty beyond calculation." "I speak of doing what needs to be done." The visits continued. Lieutenant Yildara from the Velkin contingent came to ask about human tactical doctrine. General Morthak from the Horthak forces wanted to understand how humans trained for impossible missions. Each conversation revealed that Sarah's actions had challenged fundamental assumptions these species held about warfare, duty, and the nature of heroism. But it was the visit from Master Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez that changed everything. Sarah was sitting up in her medical bed, reviewing reports on her personal tablet, when she heard familiar footsteps in the corridor outside. The rhythm was distinctly human, but there was something about it that made her look up sharply. The man who entered her room was older than her, perhaps 60 standard years, with graying hair and the kind of weathered features that spoke of decades spent in hostile environments. He wore the uniform of a council military advisor, but Sarah's trained eye immediately picked up details that told a different story. The way he moved, the set of his shoulders, the casual confidence that marked someone who had operated in the most dangerous places imaginable. "Commander Chen," he said, his voice carrying the particular tone that spoke of shared experiences and mutual respect. "I'm Master Chief Rodriguez. I heard about your little adventure." Sarah recognized him immediately, though they had never met. Master Chief Pedro Rodriguez was a legend in certain circles, a Navy SEAL who had transitioned to working with Council forces when humanity first began participating in galactic peacekeeping operations. His reputation was built on impossible missions completed and lives saved under circumstances that defied logic. "Master Chief," she acknowledged, setting aside her tablet, "I know your work." Rodriguez smiled slightly. "And now I know yours. That was good work in the facility, Commander. Clean, efficient, minimal collateral damage. The hostages speak very highly of you." "I was just doing my job." "No, Commander, you were doing something much more important than that." Rodriguez moved closer, his expression becoming more serious. "You were showing these alien species what humans are really capable of when everything is on the line." He reached into his uniform pocket and withdrew a small device that looked like a modified medical scanner. "I need you to remove your shirt and turn around." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Master Chief." "Trust me on this, Commander. What I'm about to do is something that hasn't been done in over a decade. The last person to receive this honor was a Marine colonel who held off an entire pirate fleet single-handedly while evacuating a civilian transport." Sarah complied, turning her back to the Master Chief and exposing the skin where her existing service tattoo was located. Rodriguez activated the device, which hummed with a sound unlike any medical equipment she had encountered. "This is going to hurt," he warned. "The process takes about an hour, and I can't use standard pain management because it interferes with the precision required." "What process?" "Commander, what you did at that facility demonstrated something that even my own Brotherhood recognizes as extraordinary. You showed courage beyond rational thought, skill beyond normal training, and dedication to protecting others that transcends species barriers. The hostages you saved included children from 5 different worlds. Their parents will never forget what you risked for their families." The device began its work, sending precise pulses of energy into Sarah's skin. She gritted her teeth against the pain but remained perfectly still. "The mark you already carry shows that you earned your place among Earth's elite warriors," Rodriguez continued as he worked. "But what I'm adding to it today is something different. It's recognition from the global special operations community that you have demonstrated the qualities we value most: courage, skill, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for those who cannot protect themselves. The pain was intense but manageable. Sarah had endured worse during her original SEAL training, and she understood the significance of what was happening. The device Rodriguez was using was creating permanent marks in her skin, not tattoos applied with ink, but scars formed with surgical precision. The Zenthari have a concept they call Karthek, Rodriguez explained as he worked. It translates roughly as honored above tribe. It's recognition that an individual has performed actions so significant that they transcend normal social boundaries. The Velkin have something, means one who walks between worlds. The Krillians call it Zormakthan, warrior of all peoples. Sarah began to understand what was happening. You're saying they see what I did as significant beyond just successful completion of a mission. I'm saying they see what you did as proof that humans possess qualities they didn't believe existed in any species. Courage that functions independent of odds, tactical thinking that transcends conventional approaches, and a willingness to risk everything for people they've never met and will never see again. The device completed its work with a soft chime. Rodriguez stepped back, examining his handiwork with professional satisfaction. The marks I've just added to your existing tattoo incorporate symbols from 7 different council member species, each one representing their highest military honors. This is not just a human decoration anymore, Commander. It's recognition from the galactic community that you have demonstrated the finest qualities any warrior can possess. Sarah carefully put her shirt back on, feeling the burn of the fresh scars beneath the fabric. How is this going to be received when I return to the council chambers? Rodriguez smiled grimly. Commander, when you walk back into that chamber, you won't just be representing humanity anymore. You'll be carrying the respect of every warrior culture in the galaxy. The council chambers had changed during Sarah's absence. When she returned 3 days later, the seating arrangement had been subtly modified. The observer section where she had originally sat was still designated for non-member species, but she noticed that several of the alien representatives now occasionally glanced in her direction with what seemed like anticipation rather than dismissal. Admiral Kethvar called the session to order with his usual aggressive clicking of mandibles. We have received full reports on the incident at the Gliza mining facility. The human representatives' actions during this crisis have been noted, but they do not change the fundamental questions about humanity's suitability for council membership. Sarah sat quietly as the debate resumed, but she could sense an undercurrent of tension that hadn't been present before. Several of the representatives seemed less certain in their opposition, while others appeared more determined than ever to reject humanity's application. Fleet Admiral Zorthak leaned forward on his scaled haunches. The rescue operation was indeed successful, but it demonstrated precisely the kind of reckless behavior that concerns us about human nature. A single individual charging into an impossible situation without backup or support is not tactical wisdom. It is dangerous impulsiveness. General Vexter from the Horthak Republic nodded agreement. The humans' actions, while successful in this instance, could have easily resulted in the deaths of all hostages if they had failed. Such risk-taking is not compatible with Council military doctrine. Ambassador Yilnara's elongated blue head swayed as she spoke. We must also consider the precedent this sets. If we accept humans into the Council based on individual heroics, what message does that send about our evaluation criteria? Are we a military alliance that rewards dangerous behavior? But then something unexpected happened. Commander Thisek, the Zenthari officer who had led the failed rescue operation, requested permission to address the chamber. Sarah noticed that he was wearing decorations she hadn't seen before, new insignia that incorporated symbols from multiple species. Honored representatives, Thisek began, his clicking language carrying an unusual tone of formality. I was present during the Gliza incident. I witnessed the humans' actions directly. I would like to clarify what actually occurred. Admiral Kethvar gestured for him to continue. The human did not act impulsively or recklessly. Before entering the facility, she spent 4 hours studying our tactical assessments, reviewing the facility schematics, and analyzing the failures of our previous attempts. Her approach was methodical and based on sound tactical principles that we had overlooked. Commander Thisek activated a holographic display showing the facility layout. We focused on conventional assault tactics because that is how Zenthari warfare is conducted. We mass our forces, apply superior firepower, and overwhelm enemy positions. When this approach failed, we assumed no approach could succeed. The hologram shifted to show the route Sarah had taken through the ventilation system. The human recognized that our fundamental assumptions were wrong. She did not need superior firepower or overwhelming force. She needed to be invisible, patient, and precise. These are not skills that come from reckless behavior. They come from discipline and training that most of us cannot comprehend. General Morthak interrupted. Training cannot account for the willingness to enter certain death for strangers. That is exactly my point, Commander Thisek replied. The human's willingness to risk everything for people she had never met demonstrates something we have not seen in any species: the ability to extend protective instincts beyond immediate tribal or genetic relationships. Lieutenant Yildara from the Velkin contingent stood to speak. Commander Thisek, while we respect your tactical analysis, the fundamental concern remains. How do we know this was not an isolated incident? How do we know that humans can consistently demonstrate judgment rather than mere bravery? Sarah had been listening to the debate with growing understanding of what was really at stake. This wasn't just about humanity's membership in the Council. It was about fundamentally different approaches to cooperation, conflict, and the meaning of civilization itself. She stood slowly, and the chamber fell silent. "Distinguished representatives," she began, "you have raised important questions about human nature and our suitability for Council membership. You want to know if we can be trusted to make rational decisions rather than emotional ones. You want evidence that we understand cooperation rather than just conflict." She moved toward the center of the chamber, her movements calm and deliberate. "But I think there's a more fundamental question that needs to be answered first. What do you believe the Council exists to accomplish?" Admiral Kethvar's mandibles clicked with irritation. "The Council exists to maintain peace and stability throughout the galaxy, to provide a framework for cooperation between species, and to prevent the conflicts that waste lives and resources." "And how has that worked so far?" Sarah asked quietly. "The Gliza incident involved pirates operating in Council space, taking civilians hostage, threatening to execute children. Where was the framework for cooperation when those hostages needed help?" The chamber erupted in angry voices as representatives protested her characterization of Council effectiveness. Sarah waited for the noise to subside before continuing. "I'm not criticizing the Council's mission or its achievements, but I am pointing out that there are situations where frameworks and protocols are not sufficient. Sometimes, someone needs to act when acting appears impossible." Fleet Admiral Zorthak's reptilian features showed calculating interest. "Are you suggesting that humans offer capabilities the Council currently lacks?" "I'm suggesting that humans have spent our entire history learning to work together despite fundamental differences in how we approach problems. We have experience dealing with situations where logical analysis suggests no solution exists." Sarah began to remove her uniform jacket, just as she had done days before. But this time, the representatives watched with anticipation rather than skepticism. "You asked for evidence of what humanity can contribute to the Council. The mark I showed you before demonstrated individual capability, but what I want to show you now represents something much more significant." She lifted her shirt, exposing her back to the chamber. The original tattoo was still there, but it had been transformed. Surrounding the familiar seal trident were symbols that every representative in the chamber immediately recognized: honor marks from their own military traditions, integrated into a design that somehow made sense as a unified whole. Ambassador Yilnara leaned forward, her enhanced vision analyzing the intricate patterns. "These are not human markings. How did you acquire symbols of honor from 7 different Council species?" "Because the rescue at Gliza was not accomplished by a human acting alone," Sarah replied. "It was accomplished by someone who had learned from Zenthari tactical doctrine, applied Velkin stealth techniques, used Krillian patience and planning, and demonstrated the Horthak warrior's commitment to protecting others. The human part was the willingness to try when trying seemed pointless." She turned to face the chamber again. "These marks were placed by Master Chief Rodriguez, a human who has been working with Council forces for 7 years. But the symbols themselves were requested by members of your own militaries who served in the peacekeeping force at Gliza. They asked that I be marked with their highest honors because they recognized something important. General Vexter's warrior instincts were clearly engaged. What did they recognize? Sarah met his gaze steadily. They recognized that what happened at Gliza was not a human soldier succeeding despite alien tactics, but a human soldier succeeding because she had learned to think like all of you. The rescue worked because humanity's greatest strength is not our willingness to fight. It's our ability to adapt, to learn from others, and to find solutions that nobody thought existed. The chamber remained silent for a long moment as the implications of Sarah's words settled over the assembled representatives. She had not just demonstrated individual heroism. She had shown that humans could synthesize and improve upon the best qualities of multiple species. Admiral Kethvar was the first to break the silence. You speak of adaptation and learning, but these are claims. The Gliza incident, while impressive, is still a single event. How do we know that humanity as a species possesses these qualities consistently? Sarah had anticipated this question. She activated her personal communicator and spoke briefly in Earth's ancient English. Within moments, the chamber's main display activated, showing a complex holographic presentation that had been prepared during her recovery. Over the past 75 years, humans have participated in 137 joint operations with Council forces. She began as data streams filled the air around them. In every case, human units adapted their tactics to incorporate techniques from allied species. In 64% of cases, these adaptations improved mission effectiveness beyond original projections. The display shifted to show specific examples. During the Kepler station siege, human engineers worked with Zenthari architects to create defensive positions that combined human improvisation with Zenthari structural analysis. The result was 43% more effective than either species could have achieved independently. General Morthak studied the data with growing interest. These statistics suggest systematic collaboration rather than isolated incidents. Because that's exactly what they represent, Sarah replied. Humans don't just learn from other species, we actively seek out opportunities to do so. Every human ship serving with Council forces carries cultural exchange officers whose job is to identify and adapt useful techniques from allied species. Ambassador Yilnara's elongated features showed thoughtful consideration. This approach suggests a fundamental difference in how humans view interaction with other species. Most civilizations focus on showcasing their own strengths. You appear to focus on acquiring strengths from others. Sarah nodded. Because we learned early in our development that survival often depends on being willing to change how we approach problems. Humans who remained rigid in their thinking didn't survive long enough to pass on their genes. Adaptability became built into our nature. Fleet Admiral Zorthak leaned forward. But adaptability can also indicate lack of strong cultural identity. How do we know that humans will maintain consistent principles when faced with difficult decisions? The same way you know that about any species, Sarah replied. You look at what we do when everything is at stake. She gestured to the display, which shifted to show a new set of data. 3 months ago, the research station at Proxima 7 suffered catastrophic system failures during a solar storm. The station housed 47 scientists from 11 different species, including several individuals working on classified Council defense projects. The nearest Council rescue ships were 14 hours away. The station's life support would fail in 8 hours. The representatives studied the tactical situation with growing concern. Several worlds had lost valuable research and lives to similar disasters. A human cargo vessel was passing through the system, Sarah continued. Captain Maria Santos and her crew of 12. Their ship was not equipped for rescue operations, had minimal medical facilities, and was carrying a cargo of industrial solvents that made maneuvering extremely dangerous. General Vexter understood the implications immediately. The industrial solvents would become explosive if exposed to the station's emergency heat signatures. Attempting rescue would risk destroying both vessels. That's correct, but Captain Santos didn't see it that way. She saw 47 people who would die if someone didn't help them. The display showed the rescue operation in detail. Santos and her crew spent 6 hours modifying their cargo vessel into a makeshift rescue ship. They isolated the dangerous cargo, reconfigured their life support systems to handle multiple species, and created emergency medical facilities using equipment intended for completely different purposes. Ambassador Yilnara watched the holographic reconstruction with fascination. This required detailed knowledge of 11 different species' physiological requirements. How did they possess such information? Because every human cargo vessel carries comprehensive medical databases for all Council member species, Sarah explained. It's been standard practice for 40 years, ever since a human freighter captain saved a Velkan diplomat's life during a medical emergency. The rescue operation unfolded in the holographic display like a carefully choreographed dance of improvisation and precision. The human crew had somehow managed to extract all 47 station personnel without losing a single life, despite operating with equipment never designed for such a mission. The most remarkable aspect, Sarah continued, was what happened next. Captain Santos discovered that one of the rescued scientists was carrying research data that could have significantly advanced human military technology. She was offered substantial compensation and political favor for secretly copying the information. The chamber waited in tense silence. She refused. She said that she hadn't risked her crew to steal from the people they saved. The research data was returned to the Council intact, and Captain Santos filed no claim for compensation beyond standard rescue fees. Admiral Kethvar's mandibles clicked slowly as he processed this information. The human placed abstract principles above concrete advantage. The human understood that long-term cooperation requires short-term sacrifice, Sarah corrected. She recognized that any advantage gained through betraying trust would be temporary, while the reputation for reliability would benefit all of humanity indefinitely. Commander Thisek stood from his position in the observer section. Honored representatives, I request permission to present additional evidence regarding human reliability. Admiral Kethvar gestured for him to proceed. During my 7 years of service with Joint Human Council forces, I have observed 43 separate incidents where humans were presented with opportunities to gain advantage through betrayal or deception. In every case, they chose cooperation over advantage. This consistency suggests that their behavior is driven by systematic cultural values rather than individual moral choices. Lieutenant Yildara added her own observation. The humans I have served with demonstrate an unusual approach to military hierarchy. They show respect for alien command structures even when they disagree with tactical decisions. This suggests a species capable of subordinating tribal instincts to larger organizational goals. General Morthak had been studying the data displays throughout the discussion. The evidence presented indicates that humans possess several qualities that could benefit the Council: adaptability, technical innovation, cultural flexibility, and consistent ethical behavior. But I have one final concern. Sarah waited for his question. Humans are a young species with a short lifespan compared to most Council members. How do we know that your cultural values will remain stable over time? How do we know that future generations of humans will maintain the same commitment to cooperation? Sarah smiled for the first time during the entire proceedings. General, that question answers itself. The humans you're considering for Council membership aren't the same humans who first developed space travel. We've changed dramatically over the past century as we've encountered new challenges and opportunities. But we've changed by becoming more cooperative, more adaptable, and more committed to working with others. She gestured to her scarred back, still visible beneath her partially open shirt. These marks represent the recognition that humans can learn and grow beyond their original limitations. Every generation of humans has faced problems that seemed impossible to solve, and every generation has found solutions by working together with others. Fleet Admiral Zorthak's reptilian features showed what might have been approval. You suggest that humanity's youth is an advantage rather than a liability. I suggest that humanity's willingness to change is exactly what the Council needs as it faces new challenges. You have species with ancient wisdom, advanced technology, and powerful militaries. But you also have situations like Gliza, where traditional approaches fail, and someone needs to try something that has never been attempted before. Sarah straightened her uniform and faced the assembled representatives with calm confidence. The Council asked for evidence of what humanity can contribute. We offer adaptability, innovation, and the willingness to risk everything for people we barely know. We offer the experience of learning to cooperate despite fundamental differences, and the commitment to place long-term stability above short-term advantage. Admiral Kethvar looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives. The evidence presented requires careful consideration. We will adjourn for deliberation. But as the representatives began to file out of the chamber, something unprecedented happened. One by one, they stopped at Sarah's position. Commander Thisek, Lieutenant Yildara, General Morthak, and finally Fleet Admiral Zorthak himself, each paused to offer gestures of respect from their own cultures. The vote, when it came 3 hours later, was unanimous. Humanity was welcomed into the Galactic Council not despite their differences, but because of their ability to bridge differences that others couldn't overcome. Sarah Chen became the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council, carrying marks of honor from 7 species, and the responsibility of proving that her people could live up to the promise she had demonstrated. The galaxy was about to discover what humans could accomplish when they were not fighting for survival, but building for the future.